Hello and welcome to session number 3 of the GraphQL real-time race. Today, in this episode, let's say it like this, we are going to add maps capability into your application. So in order to get this started, you need to have your AWS account. You need to be using one of the supported versions that are mentioned in the document. You have to have some familiarity with the AWS console because we are going to use it, have Chrome or Firefox, and then we are going to build on top of what we have been doing in the session 1 and session 2. You might infer in some cost doing this, so be aware of that and do the last session where we are going to show you how to clean up everything so you don't have long cost in your application. So this is the third session, and we are going to add maps. We are going to add a lot of interesting things to your application, not only just displaying a map, but using map functionalities to share location and to add notifications. So this is a really, really cool session to work on. So we are going to not only add the map, we are tracking all the user movements in the map. So we will have a little figure, you will see it right now, that will represent the person moving physically because, I cannot go around the neighborhood and show you. And we are in this Monza stadium in Italy. I would love that this session will pay me to go to Monza, but I cannot go there. So I will be simulating that with a little person there in the map that will be moving for me, and we will be tracking the location in the map. And then imagine I have friends and I can see the location of where my friends are, where they are going, and I can share my location with them. So this is super, super fun. So let's start by adding a map to our application. For that, we are going to use the location service. And this is a brand new service. It was kind of pre-announced in re:Invent 2020, and it went general available like in beginning of June, so it's fresh out of the oven. And this location service has a lot of functionalities. It not only allows you to work with maps, but it also allows you to add search in maps. It allows you to route, find how to get from point A to point B. It allows you to do geofencing, that's one of the features that we are going to work a lot with. And it comes with a lot of integrations to different backend services from AWS. And you will see that integration when we get to the notifications and event tracking. But for now, let's start by adding a map to our application. Using the location services, we will need to modify the Cognito identity pools that we created earlier to add permissions to our application to be able to display that maps. Because if you know, all resources in AWS are born without permissions. So we need to be very clear and give the permissions to, in this case, Cognito identity pool to access this map provider and display the map. So let's go step by step and see how we can do this. So the first thing is going to our AWS management console, and we are going to create a map. For that, you need to go to the Amazon location service. You can find it in your recent visit or in all the services, or then just search in that bar. We have so many services that sometimes finding something is easier from search. And here we will see all the functionalities that the location service has for us, but for now we are just using the maps. We go there and we can create a new map. There is some instructions here on how to use this, but I will show you how to use it. In order to create a map, we just put a name to it. In this case, I'm very specific with the name because we are going to use that in the code. So if you are copy-pasting, keep the same name. And then pick the map that makes you happier. I picked that S3 navigation, but there is many out there. Any S3 map will do for this particular demo. There is here an S3 now as providers. Then pick the pricing plan that tells you with the yes, that is the request-based usage plan, and then create the map. Good, now we have a map that we can use. So we need to go to our Cognito identity pool that we created in the previous step and give permissions. So In order to find that Cognito identity pool, we are going to our console in the project that we were working before in the previous sessions, and we are going to run amplify we are going to run amplify auth console. And that will show us some different options. Here we will see the admin UI, the user pool, identity pool, or both. And what this will do is will give us an URL that if we are logged into our AWS console, will take us exactly to the user pool that we are interested in. So we don't need to search for it. So let's open that link. And as I'm already logged in, I can go and edit the identity pool. So in this page, what you will need to notice is that there are two roles, the unauthenticated role and the authenticated role. This is basically, if you don't know how Cognito works, I can give you tweet size information. The identity pools is the one that will give temporary AWS permissions to your authenticated or not authenticated users in your Amplify application. In this case, we have authenticated users, so we need to add the permissions to authenticated roles because everybody is logged in order to use this application of the race. So what we are going to do is in that authenticated role, we need to remember that super long auto-generated name. I'm sorry, but you need to remember it for like 2 seconds until we find it. So remember. So then we will go to IAM, that is our identity and access management page, and look for that role. You remember the name? Well, if you don't, go back, open this in a different tab and try to remember it. Now here are all the similar resources, so we can go over the name and try to see the full name. So here we find it, the auth role for that particular thing. What we are going to do there is to create a new inline policy, and that means that we are giving permissions, extra permissions to this authenticated role. An inline policy basically has 3 parts, a resource, an action, and basically if we are allowing or denying that permission. So this is the policy that we are going to create. It's an allow on basically getting different maps, aspects of an application, and then the resource is the map that we just created. You need to put the right region and account name into that policy. Then you just give a name and you create the policy and you are ready to go. So the next step now is to add the map to the project. For that, first we are going to install some dependencies that are important in order to visualize the map. We are going to use a couple of map libraries that will draw the map in our application. So basically, we will first do that there are 3 dependencies, and you can find them in the document. They are the React Map GL, the Mapbox GL, and the React Map GL. Those are the 3 dependencies that I'm adding right now, and you can see them there. And let's wait until they're there, and then we can use them in our map page. I will be starting the map page by just basically copy-pasting what you find in the instructions, and then we will go over that and analyze what we just copy-paste, so we save some time in the process. So let's go to the map page, and I will basically just copy-paste what is in the document of this workshop. So now everything is copy-paste, and you can see that I have done some imports there. There is the auth from Amplify. There is the map box that we just added, and the React Map GL that we just added. Then you can see that there is the map name. This is exactly the same map name that I just created the map with. There is a main location. That is where we want the map to be shown in unload. And then we have a function called map, and this is the function that is drawing the map. We can see that there is these credentials. These credentials are getting from the Amplify auth library. So this is very important. And then we have this method called transform request that will be using that credentials to sign all the requests to the location services, so the map drawer can get the different bits of the map. And then we have the component map React GL. That is the one drawing the map in the screen. And we can see there that we are calling that transform request with the credentials from Amplify. And we are setting the viewport to those original coordinates we had at the beginning. Then there is a little marker. You will see that that's a little star. And then there is a popover that will be appearing whenever you click the star. And that's showing some information of the Autódromo Nazionale de Monza. I would love to be there, but I'm not. So the page is just that. So now we can basically go to our preview and see how this works. So let's go to map, and we can wait a little bit until it refresh, and we can see that we have the map drawn with a little star. And if we go over the star, we can see that there is a little pop-up with that information. So this is the first part of our this tutorial. Now let's add the map to our application. Now, for the next step, we want to track the user movements in the map. So now we are going to start incorporating more AWS services into this flow. We have location services, but location services basically are helping us with the location. We are going to create a geofence in that location service, and basically a geofence is like a polygon where there is like a border. And if a user crosses the border that is in like a map, then a notification will be sent. We will be configuring it. And that notification location service will send it. It will send an event to a service that we have that is called Event Bridge. Event Bridge is one of our managed services, and it's an event bus that a lot of AWS services send message to. So basically, location service will be sending a message to Event Bridge. And by default, when you create a geofence, it will configure automatically the messaging to Event Bridge, and it will also configure a target for that message. So basically, who will be receiving the message to CloudWatch. So whenever we create a geofence, that will come automatically, and you will see it in a moment. Basically, whenever somebody enters or exits that geofence, that polygon in the map, that area in the map, and a message will be sent to Event Bridge, and that will create a log in a log group in CloudWatch. And that all happen automatically. So let's see how we do that. For doing that, the first thing we need to do is to create a geofence. Then again, we need to add permissions to that role that it took us a long time to find. I hope you have it saved in a tab because we are going back there. Then we need to implement basically the update in our application, so we can see now a little person that we can move around, and the geofence, so we know when we are entering on exit. And then we will basically generate some events so you can see it in action in CloudWatch. So it's you will see that it's very simple, but it's so powerful. You can do so many things when events get into Event Bridge. So let's get started. For doing this, again, we are going to the AWS Management Console, to the location service, and we are going to create a geofence. So let's go to create a geofence collection. We have geofence collections are basically groupings of geofence, and each geofence collection has a name, and then it has this rule built for it. So let's first put the name Monza Circuit. Again, the name is important. Then pick a pricing plan that is the request-based usage plan. And then you will see that the rule for Event Bridge that I was mentioning before comes automatically configured. You don't touch it, it's there, everything is done for you when you create the geofence collection. So this geofence now, it doesn't have any area where we are interested in. So what we need to do next is to create that area of interest where we will enter and exit. So now let's add a geofence, and for that I will basically drop the JSON file that is in the helping, and it looks like this in the document. Now you will see that there is a lot of points that conform a polygon. You can use a website called IOJSON to build this type of things. That's also in the documentation, and that's great because you can build your own areas of interest. But for now, let's work with this one, the Monza circuit. So now we will go into Cognito and add permissions for the application to be able to send basically notifications when someone enters or exits the Geofence. So we are back in our role and we want to add permissions, and we will create another inline policy. In this case, the inline policy will be basically that the application, every time the user enters or exits the Geofence, will send a notification, and that's okay. It can send a notification. So I hope you have this open. If not, you will need to find it again as I show you. And then you go back to the same step to create an inline policy, and you paste the one that is in the help. And this will allow you to do the batch evaluate Geofence in the resource that we just created. Remember to put your region and your account number there. Put a name to that policy, and then you're ready to go. So now we are moving into updating our map application, our map page with this Geofence drawing and the little person moving. But first, I want to draw the Geofence. For that, I will be getting that Geofence that it's in the helper document, and I will create a data folder, and I will throw it in our Amplify application. So then I can use that information to draw the Geofence in the page. So let's just create a new data folder inside source and throw there the Geofence. So this is exactly the same Geofence that I uploaded to the location service when I created the Geofence. Then I will be installing one more dependency, and in this case is the AWS SDK and is the client library for location services. And we will be using this client library to do some calls, in this case to send whenever we are reaching the Geofence. So this is what you will use in that library. So let's install it, and then we can go to the code and see. I will basically copy paste what is in the helper, and we will go step by step to see what is changed. So the first thing is I'm importing that Monza Geo, and then I'm using also a couple of methods from the client location. I also have the collection name there. It's exactly the same from the one that we created in the Geofence. And I'm creating that data from the Monza Geo. Then I'm creating a layer, and this will be our Geofence drawing in the map, and you will see it in a second. And then the other changes that is there is a new method called that I'm calling the client with the batch evaluate Geofence command. Basically, whenever the position change, I'm sending that. So I will be knowing, like the location service will know is it enter or exit the Geofence. And then in our map drawing, what it changed, it's basically we'll have a little marker, and this will be our little human that will be dragging around. And then we will have the layer drawn as well. So if we refresh the page, then you can see that there is the layer in red and the little human that we can drag around in and out of the Monza Autodromo. And you can see that area is drawn like with different points, and that comes from the Geofence that we built. So all those coordinates are building that Geofence, and we can draw them there. And it's painted there as a layer. So now we can try this out and see what is happening in the backend. We can see how the events are coming into CloudWatch. So let's do that. For that, go back to your management console and find CloudWatch. So you find that by searching. It's the easiest way. I would recommend you go and find CloudWatch. Then you want to find the log groups in the side. So there's the logs, and there is inside the logs, you will find log groups. And the name of the log group is Amazon Location Monitor Monza Circuit. And that was created automatically when you created the Geofence. So we can either search it or then just click in that log group. So if I search for it, Then I open it, and you will see that there is a couple of events. Those events were sent when I was moving my little person around. And if we open one of the events, we can see what is inside. So inside those events, we will see all the information that EventBridge was sending to CloudWatch, and basically that location service was sending to EventBridge. And this is the information of the name of the event, the account that was sent from, the region, in which resource, and this means in this which geofence, and then what type of event it was. It was an exit from the geofence Monza circuit by Marcia, and in this time and in this position. So this is pretty nice. So let's see it in action one more time. So you believe me that this just happened, and I can just basically drag my little person inside the Monza circuit, and then a new event appears there with that information that is basically entering the Monza circuit in that time. So that's basically now we are able to track the location of one particular person around. So now let's show this information to others. So imagine I have a lot of friends and we are all logged in and we can share this information, but I will only show it with myself because I don't have any friends. So what we are going to do is exactly the same. We have the location service sending a message to EventBridge every time a new enter or exit the geofence happen. But now, before our target was CloudWatch, and now our target will be a Lambda function. This Lambda function, what we'll be doing is sending a message to our AppSync endpoint that we created in the previous sessions. And it will be sending a message that will say, hey, this location event happened. And then AppSync will have a subscription that all the devices will be listening to. So whenever somebody enters the geofence or exit that particular area, then this whole pipeline will start. The message will be sent to EventBridge, to Lambda, and Lambda will put a message to AppSync, and then everybody that is my friend will receive the notification that Marcia just entered this area or exit this area. So this is what we are going to build. And I think this is so powerful because you can do so many things when you hook up Lambda functions into things. So the steps for doing this, the first thing is we are going to add a little bit more geofences. So we have a little bit more granular data. I will be adding some interest places like casino and hotels and things like that. So we have more places than just the Monza circuit that is pretty big. Then I will be creating a new model in our AppSync. So I will be adding more information in our schema that will be saving the events of our location if we enter or exit. Then I will be creating this Lambda function that will get triggered whenever there is a new message of a user entering or exit any area of interest. Then I will be adding this Lambda function as a target for our EventBridge, a rule that was created when we created the geofence. Then we will change the code so we can see this in action, and it will be amazing. So let's go for the first step. And here what we are going to do is to add new geofences into our existing geofence collection. So I have this file that you all have as well when you can download from the information that has the Club Milano, some villa, and some Bosco Bello. I don't know what is that, but sounds beautiful, some hotel. And then we can basically add a new geofence and drop that GeoJSON there. This will add multiple geofences, one for each location of interest. And now we can basically go and add that model for our AppSync. So let's go back to our AppSync, to our Amplify application. And now we need to go inside our Amplify folder, the one that is generated automatically by Amplify. And there you will go to the backend and to API. And we will change the schema GraphQL. And then we will push it back to the server, so don't worry. In there, we are going to add a new type called location event. And you can see there that there are two rules. The first rule is to allow our Lambda function to put events on it. And the second rule allows everybody that is signed in to see the updates in the location. Then there is some information like the geofence, the device ID, the time, the longitude and latitude that you see that are exactly the same information that EventBridge was sending to CloudWatch. Because basically this Lambda function will get triggered when EventBridge has a new message for it. So now we can go and create that Lambda function, and then we can push everything to the cloud. So let's do amplify add function, and there we will go through some of the tutorials to create that function. So we are going to create a Lambda function that we are giving a name. We are calling it update location. Put any name you want. I will use node. And then I want it to be the hello world, but don't worry too much about that. Hello world is good. And then I want to configure some advanced settings so I can give permissions to the API, the AppSync API. So let's give that. And then I will want to give other permissions to the Lambda function. I will say yes. And I just say I want the API. And then it will ask me what kind of permissions do you want. I will say query and mutation. And basically, then the Lambda function will have exactly the permissions that it needs. And then I don't want to run this function in a schedule because EventBridge will trigger it. I don't want Lambda layers. And I don't want to edit it right now because we are going to edit it in a second. So now we can basically go to the code that it was generated, and we can see it. You can see it inside the backend again, and now in the function folder, it should appear inside the source. It should be an index file, and that's the function that we just created. Again, I will copy paste the code that you have in the instructions, and we will go over it parts by parts so we understand what is going on. So this looks quite long, but it's not that complicated. You will see that there is 3 methods, and I will now make them like I will minimize them so we can focus on the methods that are interest for us. Let's make this smaller so it's easier to read this document. The first one is the export handler, and this is where everything starts. And you can see there that there is this request method. And then inside there is this kind of GraphQL query. Then, and you can see also there is a create location event mutation. So the request method is just a helper function that will call AppSync with a sign kind of call. So then we are sure that we are calling the right permissions. And then the create location event mutation is basically the proper GraphQL query in order to pass all the variables that we are getting from EventBridge. You can see that we are getting a lot of information from EventBridge, and we need to pass it to the AppSync. Everything that comes from the event object is coming directly from EventBridge. Now we can push everything, the change that we did to AppSync and also the new Lambda into the backend, and we do amplify push, and then we force it. We say, yes, just go for it, and then we wait. Now it's time for me to speed this up and see you after it deployed, because it will take you a couple of minutes to deploy this whole thing. So the next step is to go to EventBridge and add this new Lambda that we just deployed it. So this you need to do after you have finished deployed as a target. We have the target in EventBridge CloudWatch. So whenever an event comes, it will go to CloudWatch as we saw. But now we want to add another target. So when an event comes, it goes also to Lambda. So we find the rule that is called Monzo circuit, and we go to that particular route and we can edit it. You can go down and you will see that there is already one target, that is that CloudWatch log that we saw some moment ago. Then we will create a new one with a Lambda function in mind, and we need to find the function that we just deployed. We call it update location staging, so just look for it. It should be there, and then basically save that rule, and that's kind of it. You don't need to change anything else. So now we are going to update the code for that. And for that, I want to first add a couple more dependencies to our project. I will add 2 more dependencies that will help us, their React use, and send observable that will help us to have a more dynamic page. So we don't need to render the page all the time. So the subscriptions from GraphQL can basically appear in the page right away. And so this is kind of the 2 dependencies that we are adding. You find them in the documentation, so go and check them out. And then we are going to modify the data folder. Remember that we added the first geofence there. Now we will add all the attractions geofence file that you got from the instructions, the same that you uploaded to the location service. And now we can basically work on the code when we have that. So let's go back to the code. I will again copy paste everything that is in the helper, and we will go over the changes so you know what you just done. So in these changes, what we will see is a couple more of geofences and then a new kind of pop-up. So let's see it in action. So you will see there is the attractions geofence that we just import because we want to draw them again. And then there is these libraries and also the subscription that we are importing there. That error is something Cloud9 gives, so don't get, it's not an error, it's just telling something is missing, but it's not. Just cannot find it. If you have the same, don't worry, it will work. Then we add another layer with blue for these other attractions, and then we will add that subscription as well. The next thing is to create this toast message, and this will be a kind of message box where all the events for my friends and for me are there, and it will send who enters what. If somebody enters, it will be red. If some enters, it will be green. If somebody exits, it will be red. And then we are going to draw that on top of the map. So now our map, React map component has so many things on it. It's so kind of busy, but it's great. And then we can basically refresh the page and see what has been drawn. So this piece of code was not much. It was just that subscription and then the toast and the new geofences. And now if we refresh, you can see that there is 4 little attractions and a new message on top that's a toast that Marcia has left. We have the different geofences drawn there in the same way that we have drawn the first one. And if I move my little person around, you can see that the messages get updated. And this is the Lambda getting triggered and sending a message to like AppSync, and then AppSync sending a subscription to my application. So it looks complicated, but you have seen that it's not that complicated to implement, and it's very real time. This person is just walking around and the notifications are coming right away. So this is something that at least when I saw it, it was possible with location services. I was pretty impressed. So that's it. Now you have maps in your applications, you have notifications, you can track where everybody is, you can see where your friends are. So this is super exciting. Now it's time for you to move to the 4th part of this session, and soon you are going to have your full GraphQL real-time race application built, and you can do so many things with very little code and very little complexity. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ping me on Twitter. I'm always happy to help you. My messages are open, and I would love to know if you completed this step in the process. So thank you and have a great day. Ciao, ciao.